Let's make sense of this. Let's make sense of this and find out what consumers and buyers of these vehicles really need to look out for. Joining me are two people who perhaps know more about cars, retail, and consumer sentiment more than anyone else. Hormaz Sorabji is editor of Autocar India. Siddharth Patankar is editor-in-chief of Acco Drive. Siddharth, quickly coming to you first. These new GST numbers, what do they tell you? August is a month when car sales are supposed to be pretty healthy, pretty high on the foothills of Diwali and the festive season. They've pretty much slowed down this time. What are you making of it?
Hi, good evening, Shiv. Thanks for having me. What we are making of it is a whole lot of confusion because you're right. There's been a wait and watch syndrome that's set into the market with good reason. There has been enough reported about these slabs perhaps changing. So, of course, people are putting off their decisions. It is Ganesh Chaturthi as we speak. Yes. The Ganesh Mahotsav is on in Maharashtra, for instance, and that typically kicks off what you just said, like a sales bonanza of sorts, which continues all the way till after Diwali. This time, of course, we're waiting. Luckily, we are in that week now where the council is meeting. I'll tell you where the confusion really comes from. It's not just the new proposed slabs or the revised slabs that everybody's been discussing. It's also a little bit of uncertainty on what happens with all the various cesses that have been thrown on top of the existing slabs. So will there be a change in that nomenclature? These are speculations at this point. There's been a lot of conjecture. And then, of course, there's that whole other question about what happens to special categories. Yeah. Electric vehicle, hybrids. Will hybrids finally get some kind of a revised incentive from the government? There was a huge hint from the Prime Minister at the opening of Maruti's EV plant in Gujarat last week. So this is where that uncertainty is coming from. And of course, trying to save, you showed in your graphics just now, the kind of significant savings a consumer could actually end up with. That is where the heart of the market is. That is where the volume is as well. And so it's with good reason that people are waiting and watching, Shiv.
Hormaz, what are you making of this slump right now in August? Understandable given the uncertainty and confusion over where prices are going to land post GST 2.0?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, everyone's waiting and watching because obviously the GST comes down. One assumes that there will be significant price reductions, but how much of that will be passed on to the consumer? What will the cess be? So there's no real clarity on that. So, these are just assumptions. And I think, with, as Siddharth said, the GST Council meeting soon, we'll have some clarity on that. It's not just a simple reduction at times. Obviously, you can't just do the calculation you did, to be honest, because we really don't know if there are any other taxes on top of that and how much the OEMs are going to pass on to the customer. It may not be everything, it may be something. But I think net one can expect, at least for the small cars, maybe there will be relief, prices will come down. And I think that's really a sector that needs a boost because especially the budget end of the market has been languishing. And really, I think, in that sense, cars have become really very expensive at the budget end. And I think to kind of give that a boost, a lower GST, especially on small cars, I think actually is a good thing. Because at the end of the day, I think small cars should be encouraged for various reasons. And I think India has traditionally been a small car market. Of course, the market now has shifted up towards SUVs and mid-sized SUVs, purely because the small cars, as I said, were getting too expensive and not delivering enough value. So in terms of price, they're still at the bottom end. But I think overall, this sort of GST reduction could be the shot in the arm the small car segment needs.
Hormaz, we do know that the GST 2.0 deliberations also happening, partially in response to a kind of geopolitical churn. There is the entire tariff angle that is being, responded to perhaps through this GST sort of rationalization. Do you think it could have been done a little better, given how crucial this time is, specifically for car sales?
Well, I think, the announcement was made, mid-August, and obviously there's a lag. So until it's finally decided, so there will be that wait and watch period. But as you said, because of geopolitical, tensions right now, I think from a macro level, to increase consumption, I think reducing GST across the board or simplifying the tax rates I think that was the objective. And I think that was maybe the need of the hour as well.
Yeah.
But I think, there's going to be a lot of other ripple effects with this because if the GST on small cars comes down, the delta between the small car and EVs will be reduced. It could impact EVs. There's talk of larger EVs or more expensive EVs having a higher GST as well. Again, that could impact the whole, push towards electrification. Don't forget, we've been on the right path. Last year, we were 2.2% or thereabouts in terms of penetration. We jumped to over 4% right now. And, disturbing that could kind of, let's say, be a hurdle for looking at the penetration levels of EVs we want going forward. So a lot of ripple effects. And as Siddharth said, will hybrids get some benefit? Look, everyone's going to go the hybrid route at some point. So from the manufacturer's point of view, it's very difficult what to invest in when you have these kind of changes of taxation and policy all the time.
Hormaz, while we wait for Sid to reconnect, a common question that we saw reflected as we promoted this show tonight was, what if I want to go out and buy an EV at this time? Should I wait and go ahead? Should I book? Should I wait and watch? What do I do? A lot of people asking that question.
Oh, well, I think I think to buy an EV, the time is now because I don't see the GST going below 5% on that. If at all, the GST on certain classes of EVs could go up. And there's a logic to that as well. So I think from an EV standpoint, the time to buy an EV actually is now.
What about the luxury segment, Hormaz? Would makers feel cheated by all this uncertainty right now and the proposed slabs as well?
Well, luxury segment, I don't think will be impacted that much because I think that in any case is that the higher end of, the GST bracket. But I think, again, there will be some cess on that. I don't think, we're going.
Okay, we've lost that link with Hormaz. We'll try and get it back. I think Hormaz is in traffic. But Sid, coming to you on the common question that we were asked, and I was just talking to Hormaz about that. A lot of people wondering whether they should wait on a decision to go out and buy an EV, or is this a good time? Hormaz says the time is now. What do you think?
Yes, it certainly seems like that, Shiv, because that's one area where, well, I don't want to call it clarity because, yes, certain uncertainty still remains, but it doesn't seem to be the area where we're going to be getting any kind of SOPs or massive reduction because, if anything, there are certain larger sized EVs which are likely to perhaps get more expensive. That is at least what we have been picking up so far. That's what has been reported so far. And look, here's the other thing over here to remember, that we're talking about vehicles, ironically, where, we are finally seeing a slight premiumization of the mass brand EVs. So anything that, becomes 20 lakh rupees and higher, that's where actually the big growth was starting to just show. That could get impacted by all of this. The only sort of ray of hope, if you will, is that the geopolitics that you were mentioning a little while earlier, the whole idea is to try and make the Indian industry that much more robust, that much more of a manufacturing base for other markets as well. This is something that this government sees very clearly, and it understands the need to be able to push that agenda. That's where the silver lining could be. That's where we could see that when it comes to even the new energy vehicles, while there is dependency on certain other countries and certain regions for some of the raw material, we are seeing a lot more of that Make in India thrust happening with new energy vehicles now in India. So that's where I would say there is some hope. But yes, it is probably the best time. And, I don't expect a huge positive surprise for EVs.
Do you think, Sid, that this window of uncertainty and this window of wait and watch adds far greater pressure on showrooms and retailers as well? Because, once that certainty sort of lands, it's going to be a hard dash for every consumer, every buyer.
I'm smiling, Shiv, because if you go back like a decade, there used to be this whole, little more than a decade. There used to be this thing about, hey, look, so sales are slowing down. We'll just strike off excise duty by about 1% and add some cheer to the market. That's something that hasn't happened now. So yes, you're right. It adds a lot of pressure, but this is the kind of pressure this community has been now very used to dealing with. They have figured out how to navigate some of it. They've been more resilient and strong because of it. It's also why it's some of the strongest examples of this that you see in global markets. I think India is very strong with this retail sector. The only thing I'll quickly add here is that, look, what we are seeing, frankly, the resolution we should know in just a few days' time, right? It should be this week. There's going to be an opening of floodgates, even if it shifts from one segment to the other. If some of these smaller cars do become more attractively priced, there is going to be a bit of an opening of floodgates, because not only is it the festive season, but there has been some talk about this now since the middle of August, since even earlier this year. And there's always pent-up demand. There's always a lot of pent-up demand that anyway gets released in the second half of the year. So yes, I think that's what the manufacturers and the large dealers would be really watching out for, to try and see how they can balance off what could potentially be a little bit of pressure or loss on one side, but try and make up for it on another.
Hormaz, is that what you're hearing from manufacturers and retailers as well? That they, waiting and watching on this, but it is possibly the floodgates.
Thankfully, will come next week. I think everyone is banking on a strong festive season. So really don't want any uncertainty leading into that. It's not been a fantastic year overall for the auto market. I think there have been, headwinds, and clearly it's to be expected because we've had such phenomenal growth for the last couple of years. So obviously the growth is going to flatten for sure. Don't forget, 4.3, 4.5 million cars. That's a crazy number. Also, cars are just generally getting a lot more expensive because we have a lot more compliance coming in. Regulations for emission, for CAFE, earlier for safety. So they've really pushed the cost and prices up of cars. And also what we are seeing is a reduction in choice, because each model to introduce it into India is very, very costly as a result of this. So only if you're assured of the volumes will you introduce that model. And models which very small volumes, they are normally discontinued. So honestly, in that sense, choice, not a super time for consumers. Segments like the sedan segment, the small car segment, they are almost, especially the sedan segment, it's just disappearing. And everyone's just moving towards an SUV market.
Very interesting. Final question to you both, because like Sid said, a decision is going to be taken this week by the GST Council. Any two prescriptive things you'd like to mention if the government's listening and watching? Sid, first you and then Hormaz.
Well, I think it's time to have clarity and also a roadmap, so that there is clarity on that investment that needs to come from OEMs. What Hormaz was saying, right? Like, unless you have an assured sort of return on investment, you're not going to make that investment. The opportunity is there because, as you saw, a lot of the global automobile industry started to invest heavily in just electric vehicles. India has this golden opportunity to also be the provider and supplier of the ICE vehicles, the petrol and diesel cars. That's where we have to be robust about this. We have to also give that indication to the industry that there will be that support and clarity, so that we don't have policy changes popping up every few months.
Hormaz, final word to you. Two things you'd like to see reflected in whatever is announced.
The auto industry is a hugely long-term business. It requires a lot of lead time for product development, change in technology. And I think the industry has to be given that lead time from a policy standpoint. Now, even for CAFE 3, which is technically supposed to happen by April 27, it's not still completely frozen. There's still some discussions going on and on. And this is what really kind of spooks a lot of OEMs or manufacturers. And I think that's really what is needed. So then manufacturers can invest, they can plan what direction they're going in. And I think it's really this long-term consistency of policy which we desperately need. And at the same time, we can't be having regulations every 6 months, which you have to adapt your cars. So, you had CAFE, now you've got E20, soon you'll have CAFE 3. It just goes on, and that's hugely expensive. And honestly, it just pushes the cost of introducing cars very, very high.
I hope the people making those decisions and making those announcements this week are listening. Clarity, not confusion. Hopefully a smoother ride ahead. Thanks very much, Hormaz and Sid. Great to see you. I learned a lot as well, and good to see some of that clarity returning, at least as we try and navigate towards whatever the government announces. Good to have you. Thanks very much for being with me.